Arcelormittal South Africa has agreed to buy Imperial Crown Trading for 800 million South African rands, which is set to be about $110 million. Now, Imperial Crown Trading earlier this year was awarded a prospecting right of over a 21.4% stake in Kumba iron ore Sishen mine, previously owned by the steelmaker. The deal has been disputed by both companies since February of this year. Just to try to unpack what's going on today and how history has influenced all of this is Nonkululeko Nyembezi-Heita, who is the CEO of Arcelormittal South Africa. It seems like there's quite a lot to sort of condense in this small space of time. Let's talk about events today, the buying up of Imperial Crown Trading. Why have you gone that route?
Well, we actually announced two deals today. One was the acquisition of 100% of the issued shares of Imperial Crown Trading, and the second was our BE deal, our broad-based Black Economic Empowerment deal, about which I have to say we are rather pleased and rather proud. So let me start with that. Always had been something that we intended to do, and started doing so, putting the deal together in 2008. We all know what happened in 2008. Market crashed and we couldn't get any credit for it. What brings today's events to the fore, though, I suppose, from an ICT perspective, is the fact that we have now taken steps to try and address the loss of the mineral rights over the Sishen mine, which transpired a little bit earlier this year. And so in one fell swoop, we're hoping to address a multiplicity of imperatives for the business.
Let's chip away at it in small blocks, and we, the media, will start with the controversy first and then talk about all the celebrations. Now, there's continued mediation between Kumba and Arcelor, and it's believed that the mediation could take up to anything between a few months, as it is right now, up to 2 years. In June of this year, Kumba applied for a court review over ICT's prospecting rights, which is now creating another element to this dispute. Do you think that, depending on what happens in arbitration, that your deal with ICT could be affected by some of these processes?
The arbitration actually has nothing to do with mineral rights. The arbitration is to determine the validity of a commercial agreement between Kumba and Arcelormittal South Africa, and it will go the way that it goes. And really, this is a parallel development where we are now settling on how we start to address the mineral rights issue. And just to remind everyone, the mineral rights lapsed in May last year. And the prospecting rights over that 21.4% of Sishen was handed to ICT. By ArcelorMittal doing a deal with ICT, it's an attempt really to rejoin that. It has hurdles, as you have alluded to them. There's still
Kumba
legal processes.
That.
Correct. And of course, our own due diligence to make certain that the award, the manner in which they were awarded, does not render the prospecting right defective.
So you're not really concerned about Kumba questioning this through a court order, because effectively Sishen is owned by Kumba?
We are concerned, clearly. We are paying 800 million rand, or we have agreed to pay 800 million rand to acquire ICT. You don't want to pay that kind of money and you end up with no rights at the end of it. So the structure and the provisions in the subscription and share sale agreement would have taken account of that.
Okay, that 800 million rands that you're talking about, it is a lot of money, and some people are questioning whether acquiring ICT was a smart thing to do, largely because they're an unknown player within the iron ore space, and many people are questioning the expertise and the wisdom of whether or not you should be going with people who are unknown and whose expertise is questionable.
Well, look, we are not actually expecting them to actually assist in the mining or any other thing. We are just merely wishing to see the transfer of those mineral rights back to Arcelormittal South Africa. In essence, if you just take a step back and say, where were we 3 weeks ago? We're at a point where Arcelormittal South Africa had indicated that the sustainability of some of our operations was questionable if we did not find a way to resolve the dispute in such a way that we find back the cost plus pricing for our iron ore. So I think you need to look at this deal in that way, that it's just one more building block that may help us get to that. But essentially, this is going to end up being a holistic solution between ourselves and Kumba.
You've obviously pursued a variety of ways to just sort of lessen the blow, as it were. You've entered into a temporal agreement, as it were, with Kumba to get the iron ore at half the market rate, which is not what they'd proposed initially. So you've got a bit of a compromise on that front. But how would going with ICT help you try to influence the price? Something which the government's also quite concerned about in terms of the pricing of steel at the moment, and your argument in terms of the pricing of iron ore in order to make it affordable.
Well, the answer is going to have a lot of ifs. So if the prospecting right is converted to a full mining right, and if ICT prevails in the litigation against them that has been brought about by Kumba, then the mining right will revert to Arcelormittal South Africa with DMR consent, and that means that we would then have ownership of 21.4% over Sishen mine. At the current mining output of that mine, that means it entitles us to something of the order of 8 million tons per annum at cost, because we would own it. So that would be a big plus for ArcelorMittal South Africa, and in fact would put us in a better position than the 6.25 million tons that we had before.
All right, now there is a cloud hanging over the head of ICT. I think we cannot dispute that. Many people have raised questions about the bona fides of this company. One of the directors is said to be the son of President Jacob Zuma. His name is Duduzane Zuma. Through the Gupta brothers in itself, it's quite a complicated network. But basically there is a perception that this company is all about political patronage. Are you concerned about that?
Clearly, we read the same newspaper articles that everybody does, and I have to say that there's been a lot of speculation. However, businesses do not take business decisions, particularly over such important matters, based on media speculation. It is incumbent upon management to get proper advice, to go through a due diligence process, not to ignore any of the red flags that have been raised, but to properly assess them and their impact. We're in the process of doing precisely that. There's also all kinds of compliance that we have to check, FCPA being one, Anti-Corruption Act in South Africa being another, and we will go through that. We haven't come to anything yet. There's no evidence that we've uncovered so far that would seem to suggest that political patronage has played a role in any of this, but clearly it's early days yet.
All right, now beyond the issue about ICT as a company and your acquisition of it, is a broader environment in which mining is operating in the country at the moment. There's been a mining charter which has been reviewed. There are BEE targets which must be met, and the government is unequivocal about that. There's talk of reviewing mining licenses periodically. Constituencies within the ruling party are talking about nationalization. They will take it to the NGC of the ANC as they review policies later on this year. There is just a sense that investing in mines is high risk in this country. There's a heavy political hand at play. How do you respond to that? Is that your sentiment?
Well, it's hard to say, Lerato, at this point, and I think it is an evolving space that we're watching just as close as the next person. But clearly, from an ArcelorMittal South Africa perspective, we are already in the space. It's not a question of us coming into it. And at some point, you have to put a pin in the ground and decide for yourself where you think all these chips are going to fall. By doing a 26% deal, we already, I suppose, addressing what will be an ultimate requirement in 10 years' time. By locking in the BE parties for 14 years, it means that we circumvent the once empowered, always empowered type of argument, because we will have the structure in place. But I dare say that if you're a foreign investor and you were looking into the South African mining scene for the first time, it would be something that you just need to take a pause and assess properly for yourself. I don't think that the risks are insurmountable, but people really need to get very detailed knowledge about it.
Always great having the CEO of ArcelorMittal South Africa, Nonkululeko Nyembezi-Heita.